We really can't tell you how thrilled we are you agreed to do this, and we're so excited to speak to you.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
No problem.
I never thought it was that big a deal, but thank you very much.
I guess for you, it's less of a big deal. You're everywhere you go, so it's not really not as much of a surprise for you as it is for us.
I mean, this isn't exactly, Wayne Johnson,
Bob, a lot of people say you either want to get Bob Newhart or Dwayne Johnson. It's either you or The Rock. I'm sure you ran into a lot of that. He took a lot of your spots from auditions, I'm sure.
I feel like that's a huge mix-up all the time. People are like, is that Bob Newhart or The Rock? Which one is that? Which one's Samoan? One of them's Samoan. I know that.
Well, you know where it comes from. When I'm on the road, I haven't been on the road this year at all, but when I was on the road, people would say to me, "Boy, you sure look like him."
Yeah, it's once you hear both of you speak, you get it, but the physique is nearly identical.
I gotta say, I actually am him. Wow!
Oh my goodness! This is what a trippy
really...
Charlie Kaufman-esque. A Newhart-esque surprise ending, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you just kind of gave us a really cool tidbit. I didn't realize, because me and you probably don't know this, but me and Kevin are both stand-ups, and I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't realize that you still do the road. That's amazing to me, because I it's such a big part of our lives. So I would love to hear your opinion. Obviously pre-COVID, COVID has kind of screwed things up for everybody. But what was the evolution of the road for you? Like, what did you decide that you loved and you hated about the road over the years?
Well, it's funny because it was like a revelation. I'd be in Vegas, and because I started in 1960, and I really never, even when I had the TV shows, I still would do stand up. And
wow,
and then and now, I mean, last year I did maybe 5 or 6, but I was. No, I forgot the thought. That's one of the dangers, by the way, when you talk to me.
No problem. I run into the same problem. No problem at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, when I was in Vegas, I'd hear my Bob music, and I'd be just about ready to go out, and I'd say to myself, why can't I sing? Why didn't God give me like a great voice instead of this crazy mind?
Right.
But then I realized, I said, because of it, sometimes it doesn't work, and it's painful when it doesn't work and you're out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I realized, I said to myself, no, that's why you're doing it. Because sometimes it doesn't work.
Absolutely. Right. And I mean, that makes it exciting.
What a sick person you are.
I think it gets chalked
the
up
danger was the reason I was doing it. And it took me like 30 years to find out that's why I was doing it.
Yeah, I think it boils down to mental illness for all of us. I think it's this shared mental illness where we have to go do this thing, even though it's a very unforgiving art form. I felt the same way, where it's like, why couldn't I? How much easier would it be to have an amazing voice than it is to go out and do what we do?
There was a story. Someone told me the story about Andy Williams. He was opening Caesar's Palace, and I used to work Vegas, so the rule was the show does the opening act does a half an hour and you do an hour.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you don't do an hour in 5 minutes. You do an hour, because the casino wants their shot at the gamblers.
Right.
So Andy went out and he did like an hour and a half by himself. And so he came back, and his manager, Alan Bernard, he said, Andy, I talked to the casino, and they said, you did an hour and a half. Andy said, yeah, I know. I got carried away, he said, but I know on the second show. I know what to cut out. Bring it down to an hour. He says, yeah, I'm going to cut out Moon River and Days of Wine and Roses. And he said, no, Andy, no, those are your hits. No, take out some of the jokes. And Andy said, oh, you can't touch the jokes. No.
So frustrated comedian, Andy.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the grass is greener thing. It's also fun to get the hot showbiz gossip here that Andy Williams runs the light. Andy Williams goes long. What a bad boy of show business Andy Williams was.
But the great thing about having such a great career is now, even last year when you were going on the road, you pretty much get to pick and choose where you go to. Do you usually pick places like Vegas, or do you base it off which cities you like to go to visit, or what's your process?
I don't know. The size is a process. I don't like to get above 1,500 seats. It's hard to do comedy when you got more than 1,500 seats, because Vegas, the Sands used to be 750 seats. I mean, that was with Sinatra or whoever,
Right.
Stephen Eady, 750 seats, and you get above 1,500, with an audience, you lose that intimacy.
Luckily, that's a problem Sean and I don't run into much.
Yeah,
we've never had to worry about cutting it off at 1,500. We keep it real intimate.
We try to get it to 15, not 1,500.
Yeah, double digits is nice. Yeah.
Yes, so that's really interesting, because I think you're right. I think it goes to the old thought process that live stand-up comedy is an intimate thing. The more it can be intimate, the better.
Yeah.
That's why they have the low ceilings rule in these comedy clubs, and it just so that the sound can bounce everywhere, and everything can absorb the laughs, and people feel like
there were great. There were great comedy. The Sands was a great comedy room. The Desert Inn was a great comedy room. The Sahara, but then some of the places just weren't great comedy rooms. They just weren't. Like the MGM Grand wasn't a great. And and I hear about the new guys, and they're playing Radio City Music Hall.
Right.
And how do you do that? Wow, I don't know how you do that.
Well, there's you probably heard of Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart played a football stadium,
That's what I hear. Yeah, that's what I hear. Yeah.
And I don't even know how that's possible, and I don't know how that's even possible. And then I think what it boils down to is it ceases to be a regular stand-up show at that. It just becomes a variety show with giant TV screens and fireworks, and it becomes it's not stand-up anymore at that point.
Yeah. And some of the big places, I played a couple of big places, and you do a line, and you go well, okay, that didn't work. And then you hear 2 seconds later.
Yes, exactly. And especially a comic as yourself, that you use the pauses and the silence and the timing. When there's a different time zone getting your joke, that really complicates things.
Well, I'm glad you guys are doing stand-up, because as you know, it's great, and it's really important these days.
Yeah,
absolutely, and it's such a it's all over the place now, and there's so many. I was curious about that. Is there any stand-ups these days that you've kind of had your eye on, that you follow, that you enjoy, like anybody from the last 10 years that you've I know it's like doing stand-up for that long, it's like you get out of the loop a little bit, maybe, because I feel out of the loop as well. So is there anybody that you've made a point to remember their name from seeing something they've done?
No.
That's a great answer.
I'm racking my brain, and
that could
nothing.
not be a better answer to that question.
Honestly, Bob, I've only been doing it.
You can't say no.
Right,
And
right.
I thought, you're going to have to say no.
You can absolutely say no. You're Bob Newhart. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. Sean and I have only been doing it 15 years, and I think we'd have the same answer almost. When you did your first album, the Button Down Mind of Bob Newhart, where were you testing that material? You talk about going on the road. Were you testing that on the road before you ended up recording it, or was there like one main place that you were working it out?
Well, no, that's the weird thing. I mean, I found out. I didn't know at the time, but I'd never played a nightclub. I'd never done stand-up. I just had these ideas that I kind of scribbled on a legal pad. You know, I'd have a funny idea, but I never played a nightclub. And I had this friend of mine in Chicago, a disc jockey, and who I'd worked with, and we'd done some local stuff. Not stand-up, but it was part of his TV show. A local TV show, and he said the Warner Brother record people were coming through Chicago, and they were calling on Dan because he was a big DJ, and he said, I have this friend of mine that I really think is funny, and they said, well, have him put down some of his stuff and we'll listen to it. So Dan called me up and he said, put some of your stuff down on tape. That I had done them locally, on TV, but never a nightclub.
Oh wow!
So I put it down on tape. It was like Abe Lincoln was one.
Sure.
Oh wow!
The driving instructor and the submarine commander. Those were the three routines I had written. And so they said, "Oh, okay. All right, we'll give you a record contract." And they said, well, record you at your next nightclub. And I said, well, we have a problem there because I've never played a nightclub.
What a first gig.
And they said, well, then we're going to have to find you a nightclub. So it took like a year because nobody wanted to take a chance on a guy who would never played a nightclub. And so I don't know if it was stupidity or on my part or perseverance but I just had to find this out. I just had to find out. I told somebody recently. I graduated from college. I had a degree in accounting. I worked as an accountant for a while, and then I went into comedy and. My buddies are getting married and buying homes, and I'm doing nothing. I'm working at a department store to keep me over for and so I just said, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what I got to find out.
I guess you found out 3 Grammys pretty quick.
I find out, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say that's some pretty great. That's a confirmation that you're doing something right.
Confirmation on, as you say, like the first couple ideas where you were like, well, this might be funny, and then people are giving you awards for it. That must, your fourth idea, you must have felt like just calling up the Grammys direct and being like, should I let you know that I have another one? Like this 100% of my ideas have done this so far.
And then I put out the second album, and it was weird because the first album went to number 1, and then the second album went to number 2, and then the first album went to number 2, and the second album went to number 1.
Right.
And I didn't even know I had this. This was a record that I wasn't even aware of until it was beaten by Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, right.
And I said, well. You hate to, when you have a record or something, you hate to lose it, but at least it went to a friend,
Right.
Yes, at least your good buddy Axl Rose and Slash.
I just got off the phone with Axl 10 minutes ago.
How's he doing? Is he good?
The same.
Yeah.
Well, it's also pretty great that everything career-wise was born out of Chicago, because Kevin's a Chicago guy. He grew up in Chicago, and he's also a huge Cubs guy, and we know you're all as well.
Oh yeah, great Cub fan. Yeah.
I canceled a week in Carolines to go back to be around my family and friends. I always said if the Cubs ever made the World Series, I had to cancel whatever I was doing and go back. And Bill Murray has that same deal. He had that same deal with movies.
Is that right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had the deal, but no one cared. And basically, and no one really knew. I just had to make a call. It didn't really bother anybody. So I went back.
He told Carolines, they're like, maybe it's for the best you take off this week.
They're like, oh, we didn't know you were here. Where were you when the World Series happened in 2016, when you finally got to see the Cubs win one?
I was in California. I don't know if I was doing a TV show. No, I don't. I think I was doing stand-up. I was a Cub fan in Chicago. I was 8 years old because I had a picture of walking with my mother on Addison to Wrigley Field. So I was 8 years old, and this was, I was 80. I guess I was 88 or something when the Cubs. So I had been a Cub fan for 80 years, and I went through that thing with DeRocher. When they were ahead, and there was very little time, very few games left, and the Cubs were like 8 games ahead, and they blew it.
In 69, yeah, 1969, right?
Is that when it was? 69, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had another weird thing. My wife and I went to the Cub ballpark, and between innings, these kids, young kids, would come down and they'd ask for my autograph. And I said, yeah, sure, just do it between innings. So signing autographs, I don't know, for maybe 10, 12 kids, whatever it was. So years later, I'm doing the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and Richard Pryor is doing his show, and his guest is John Belushi. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the dressing room and knock at the door, and it's John Belushi. And he said, "I'm John Belushi." I said, "I know who you are, John. I think you do. I love your work." And he said, "Do you remember you went to a Cub game and you signed some autographs for kids?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I was one of those kids."
Oh my God! Wow. What a great day for a child John Belushi, who probably had 2 interests, the Cubs and comedy, and really got to see Bob Newhart down there. That's wonderful.
But a lot of comedians, they come from the Midwest. Mm-hmm. I don't know, there's something about the Midwest that, okay, don't put on airs, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You got big, but don't put on airs,
Yes. Yeah, it's the Midwestern politeness.
Is that what it is? Okay.
I don't know. I'm asking. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'm from New York. I have no idea what it is.
John's a Queens guy.
From New York, you would have no idea.
You think you guys are just bored out there, and you're like, let's start up some comedy?
Well, it was George Gobel came from Chicago. Mm-hmm. Tim Conway came from Ohio. Johnny Winters came from Ohio. Mm-hmm. And there's just something about the Midwest. I don't know.
Yeah. I think, like you say about not putting on airs, it's a little bit of not taking yourself or anything else too seriously a little bit too. So. And I mean, even it's funny, I think, for us to hear when you say you were working as an accountant and as a copywriter for a long time until you were 30, and then you didn't even really think. And I think this is something Sean, as a Queens guy, Long Island guy, also grew up with. I think we just don't really think of comedy, or we didn't think of comedy as like a job you could do as a job growing up.
Yes. Yeah.
And so you, like you said, you went to college, you got a degree, and then you wrote down some ideas. Turns out it's a record, but you didn't. It wasn't really like a linear careerist, like, oh, I'm going to be Mr. Showbiz kind of a thing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You had to do it. You just had to do it.
You're still doing it.
Yeah. Still doing it.
Have you, they're doing, I'm curious what you think, comics have had to try to adapt during all this, and they've been doing shows a lot of outdoor shows, but a lot of online with Zoom. I don't know if you've heard of Zoom, but I'm curious what you think about. Don't you think there's something lost in if something's over a computer, like over video, than it is like being in the room? Like there's a feeling of being in a live comedy show room of like a shared experience that you can't replicate anywhere else in the world. Wouldn't you say?
I know. It's I've done a couple. Well, just interviews on Zoom, which I'm not all that crazy about.
Right.
It's sterile. It's just, when you're conditioned to, like doing the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, it was like there's Johnny and you and an audience, and that's the way it is. And no, you don't do Johnny and you. It's just Johnny and you and an audience. It's
right.
And that's the way it's done.
And do you remember what your first time on Johnny was like? How that came about, getting booked on that show?
No, I don't remember. I had met Johnny. I remember one show. I did the Jack Parr show, and in New York, and you come out and they tell you, okay, you see the star spot. You just hit that and do your routine, and then at the end of the routine, they need an outline. What's the last line? Because then that's a cue for the band to play you off. So you just stand there, and Jack Parr will either call you over or he'll just stand up and applaud. Which means, of course, if he calls you over, you were a hit. But if he just stands up and applauds, it didn't work.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Very funny. Very funny. So you stand there for what seems an eternity, and then he's kind of looking. You want to come over? Oh, thank God. Okay, it worked. Okay.
And then I imagine you and then getting called over to that couch. I'd imagine when you go in not knowing whether that's going to happen or not, you must be in kind of a haze as to what to say next, because turns out you're still on stage. The show's still going is kind of a surprise, Yeah.
What am I going to talk about?
Exactly. I just said all my best stuff. Yeah.
It's so great to hear about that stuff, because the closest thing that me and Kevin have to that world is we both did Letterman, and Letterman to our generation is the closest, the closest you have to Carson or Jack Park, or that traditional late night show. And I'm so curious, like if it what you're describing sounds like the same shared experience that you have in one of those theaters and on one of those shows, where it's, even though you're in front of all those people, what the guy whose show it is, really, the opinion really matters to you the whole time. Like the whole time you're up there, that's all you're thinking about. Or at least for me, that was my personal experience.
Yeah. I remember one time as a kid in Chicago, I guess I was in high school, and I go downtown to the Chicago Theater, and I'd see great comedians. Like I saw Jack Benny. And,
oh, wow.
And so then my school, then I made the record, and then I've been established for a while. And my high school, St. Ignatius, which is also the same high school that John Mulaney went to.
Oh, wow.
I got out of high school in 1947, and he got out in 2000. So every 53 years, this high school turned out another stand-up comic.
Every 53 years, they crank out a hit. You can set your watch to it.
You want to be a comic? Okay, go to St. Ignatius High School. That's where.
That's also where my grandfather went.
Anyway, so they had it at the Chicago Theater, and I'm standing and I'm doing my stuff, and I look in the back. I can't really see the audience, but I can see people kind of walking back and forth and behind behind the showroom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly what Jack Benny saw when he was there. I'm experiencing the same thing that Jack Benny saw when he was standing on the stage.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Bob, we want to thank you so much for doing this. It was such a thrill for us to speak to you about comedy and just get an insight on what you've been doing and stuff like that. And it's so great to hear that you're still out there on the road, like when you can be before COVID, obviously. Is there anything else you want to say before we go? You want to plug your Instagram or your Twitter? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, your TikTok.
I'm sure you have all those.
No, I'm just I'm glad to hear you guys are stand up, and because it's such a great thing, and it's so needed, and I can't give it up. I just can't.
Yeah, I love to. It really,
don't.
It's inspiring to hear that. I really love the fact to hear it, and really, thank you so much, and we wish you all the best, and hopefully we get to see you soon.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it.
Well, that was great.
What'd you think,
good.
Lou?
I fucking loved it. Yeah. I loved it.